Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Super duper, but you can't see me, right?
No, can't see you. Your presence is the most important part. So,
Well, actually, you two are both way easier on the eyes than I am, so that's just nobody's missing anything. It's just a little frustrating because I'm trying to. I'm just such a. I hate having my tech incompetence confirmed. I'm always trying to prove that no, I can handle this stuff.
your voice is fantastic, though, so it makes up for it.
Oh, you're very kind. God.
So, Henry, we're going to kick off.
Great. Lovely. Sorry that whoever's been waiting, apologies.
So let me just say, I'll go off camera after I say this, but we're very excited to have you here. I'm one of the moderators here in the community, and very excited. A little bit nervous right now, but Jack, if you want to take it, feel free.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Anthony. And thank you to everyone at Meditation Mind for inviting us to this event. It is really wonderful to be here with you. My name is Jack Shukman, and I am the co-founder of the Way Meditation app. I'm also Henry's meditation student and actually his nephew. And we've been working together for the last 2 years, bringing the Way Meditation app into the world. What we'll do today is I will shortly hand over to Henry, and he will lead us in a 10-minute guided meditation, where, of course, the invitation will be to close your eyes so that the audio is the most important piece. And then he'll give us a talk on the topic of how to find an unconditional well-being, which was voted on by you. And thank you so much for casting those votes. I know Henry is thrilled because it's a topic that's very close to his heart. And then the last 15 minutes or so, we'll do a Q&A from the wonderful questions that you submitted, which I'll be posing to Henry on your behalf. And so, without further ado, let me hand over to Henry. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jack, very much indeed. And thanks, Anthony, for having us on. And actually, can I not have one of these little emoji guys like you guys have got, or whatever they're called, avatars, whatever you call it? Can you just whip one up and, in couple of hits? Is that it? Is that what just appeared? Yeah. Okay, so can you put that in my square? So that's what everybody's seeing. Maybe that's too much.
I might have to wait for the next event.
Okay, that's that. Okay, well, anyway, it's really great to be with everybody. I know that, at least I assume that you're all really interested in meditation and this topic. And I love this topic about unconditional well-being because really that's what the big project of meditation is. And I'll be talking about broadly speaking, there's two really different ways of approaching the mere possibility of unconditional well-being, which of course in many ways seems like sort of freakish thing to even think about when there's so many clearly disastrous conditions in our lives, each of us, and in the world in general. Why would one even think about something like unconditional well-being? But it's very, very on point for meditation, which we'll get to. But right now, we're going to start with some sitting, some meditation, like Jack said. And, I don't know what backgrounds you all have. You may be all adepts that sort of would, leave me for smoke, in terms of your meditation prowess. Or you may be, some of you aren't convinced it's worth doing and you're just curious about it, or you're skeptical about it, and whatever. I have no idea, but it doesn't really matter at all, because I don't really believe meditation is anything other than being. It's learning to check in with our being, with the fact that we exist at all. So right now, I invite you wherever you are, to get in a comfortable position. It might be sitting, it might be lying down, it might be reclining, you might be standing up. Whatever it is, find your way to the comfortable position that your body likes, that your body enjoys being in, wants to be in right now, feels good in your body. If it's sitting, and if it's something like one of the classical meditation traditional poses where your back is not being supported, then it's important to be balanced. So if you're in that category whereby your back is not supported, close your eyes and just do a little bit of rocking backwards and forwards. It could be very, very slow, just traveling forwards with your upper body, traveling backwards with your upper body, and feeling out where the balance point is. It's not a point, actually, it's a balance zone, an area in the middle where you can be balanced. And that only applies if your back is not supported. The rest of us, and including those now with balanced spines, we're going to start by doing a little relaxation in the body. Let your face go slack. Now imagine like on some old sailing ship, the sail is unfurled. It's just hanging. Let your face be like that, just hanging, like a curtain hanging. Then come to your jaw. Bring your awareness to your jaw. And let your jaw release. Let it almost like it falls away. It'll only go a millimeter or two forward and down. Letting it hang in its own sort of sling, as it were. Downward, forward. A lot of us carry tension in the jaw, so it's a quick way to release that. Now let's allow the tongue to relax, to rest. Let your tongue sort of lie on the floor of your mouth and do nothing. Tongue is a busy complex of micro muscles. It's really nice for it to have a rest. Relax the throat. Let it be soft. Then let your shoulders and arms and hands and fingers go completely slack. Your hands might be in your lap or on your thighs or on your belly or something, but let them be completely limp. The chest is soft and warm and kind of melting, loosening, relaxing. Belly, same, is soft, loose. See if you can have a sense that all the way from your throat, down through the chest, down through the belly, it's all letting go, it's all loose. And then, feeling your buttocks on the seat. Let them be loose. And your upper legs, relax, loose. Your lower legs, same thing, loose. Your ankles, your feet, your toes, loose. Whole body loose. Kind of let your whole body be like an old coat hanging on a hook. No tension in it at all, just hanging. The more we rest, the more we're inviting a slightly different kind of awareness to switch on, to emerge. So by resting the body, and also just inviting the mind to rest, let your mind have a break. Just not need to do anything. And what can happen out of that restfulness is a different kind of awareness, just gently seems to come on, that's more receptive. It's not beaming out, looking at things, not at all. It's just there's this rest, and the rest happens to have a quality of receptivity. So we just spontaneously, naturally start noticing sounds. Listening sort of emerges by itself. Hearing comes on by itself. We might also find that we're more receptive to body sensations, to the quality of feeling the body existing at all. Some kind of vibratory tingle, maybe. That's the signature of the body existing. Sometimes there's a warmth, a tingle. We don't go looking for it. Awareness just picks it up, receives it, like a receiver picking up radio signals. The more we're resting and not doing, the more receptive kind of awareness just comes on, just emerges sort of by itself. You don't have to do anything. The less you do, the more it comes on. Can you really just let go of any doing at all? What would it be like if you just didn't have to do anything right now? really doing nothing. You know, if any trace of a feeling that you need to do something comes up, you don't even need to do anything about that. It's not like you then have to look at that impulse to do something and try to treat it in a certain way. Not at all. Just don't do anything about it. You really don't need to do anything right now. What if meditation, you know, we don't need to think of it as things we do, a thing we do, or many different things we might do. What if it's not that at all? It's really just coming back, falling back, releasing back into what you've always been anyway, all along. Since the beginningless beginning. Since no one knows how far back. What if we just can't begin to measure how long we've been this? How long this has been going on? What if this just doesn't have anything to do with time? What if this doesn't even have anything to do with place or space? It's not time-based, it's not place-based. It's always here, it can't not be here. But it's not restricted to wherever you happen to be right now. So give yourself a little thank you for giving yourself this time, for being willing to just drop in to whatever extent you wanted to or did do. Can bring a little movement back into the body, fingers and toes can wiggle a bit, maybe have a stretch, maybe have an inhale and an exhale. Yeah, sort of coming back to nowhere. Okay. Yeah. Super duper. Okay. Okay, great. Well, yeah. You know, if anybody's got any sort of reflections on that sit or wants to, I feel like a kitten just waking up. Okay, I like that kitten remark. I'm just, how do I see the whole thing? Oh yeah, lovely, waking up for a nap. Okay, thanks for people. Cool, great. Okay. Yeah, so now let's so now I'm giving a talk on We're having a talk on the topic is how to find unconditional well-being. Okay. Yeah, thanks for the nice comments, everybody, who've made them. Okay, I'm only going to talk for a little bit because I saw some fantastic questions that had come in, which I really want to get to. But here's what I'm going to talk about. Ding, ding, ding. Unconditional well-being. In War and Peace, that great novel by Tolstoy, that I don't know if any of you have read it. I've read it 3 times, and I hope I'll get to read it again before I die. There's this passage where the main character, who's called Pierre, has become he's a Russian aristocrat, immensely wealthy, and he's become a prisoner of the French army as they've invaded Russia in 1812. And he has a really hard time as a prisoner. You know, he's not treated well. He's hasn't got enough clothing for the cold Russian winter. And then all these prisoners are marched out of Moscow, where they've been held. And nobody really knows, but perhaps with the intention that they're going to be taken as prisoners of war all the way back to France, which is an immensely long walk. And they're being, you know, with brutal soldiers guarding them and being mean to them, and they never have enough to eat, and their clothes fall apart, their boots fall apart. And this character, Pierre, who's accustomed to living in luxury, he has a pair of boots that is falling apart. So his, you know, bare feet are walking on the gravel and on the frozen gravel and the ice, and it's very uncomfortable, and his feet particularly are really, really bothering him. And there's a scene when he's walking along in this column of prisoners, you know, for another 1,000 miles or whatever it's been, and his feet are really, really sore and in a really bad way. And as he's doing the meditative thing of really paying attention to the sensation of the pain in his feet, and he suddenly realizes that the amount of suffering his feet are giving him is, according to this passage in the book, is exactly the same as he used to get when he was wearing his patent leather dancing shoes at Moscow ballrooms, and they were too tight for him. They were a little bit too tight, and they pinched his feet, these fancy dancing shoes. And the way that the discomfort of those shoes used to hit him is exactly the same as the way that his broken boots and his sore feet, which are, you know, clearly insufficiently shod, and they're exposed to what, you know, you don't want feet to be exposed to, like the bare ice and rock beneath them. But his degree of suffering, this is his insight, is the same in both cases. And you might think, well, that's just rubbish. It can't be true. Obviously, walking on ice barefoot is far worse than having a dancing slipper pinch your toes, you know. But actually, Pierre is really having a significant insight, I think, when this is described in the book, because it's the central insight, you know, of Buddhism. It's the first and second noble truths, quote unquote, of Buddhism. The first insight, you could call it, of Buddhism is that suffering exists. Suffering does exist. And it's asking us to accept that, not to deny it, not to distract ourselves from it, but to fully accept it. And then the second insight is that suffering is generated by craving. It's generated by the wish that something be different. Another dimension of craving is resisting. The resisting of what's happening is the degree of resisting is the degree of suffering. Or the degree of craving is the degree of suffering. That's the first and second insights of Buddhism. So it actually makes a kind of sense what Tolstoy is describing with his character Pierre, because as a sort of pampered man about town in a Moscow ballroom when his shoes didn't fit him, he actually, to a much lower level of pain, he had the same amount of resistance, the same suffering, but not the same pain. And then when he's a prisoner of war, with his really truly sore feet that are really in a bad way, his resistance to what he's experiencing is what he recognizes as being the same that he had known when he was living this life of luxury in Moscow, and his shoes were a bit too tight. That's the insight of Buddhism. The heart of it is that if we can learn not to resist and not to crave, this is in our personal experience, then we can actually have very, very significantly less suffering. We could even be on the way to finding an unconditional well-being. The unconditional nature of that is what is meant by deep equanimity. Equanimity being the letting go of pushing experience away or resisting it, and pulling experience toward. That's the craving, that we need this experience and we absolutely need not to have that experience. Equanimity is when that pushing and that pulling is no longer happening. And of course, it would be to develop that kind of equanimity to the degree where it was truly unconditional, where we could do things like those extraordinary feats of self-immolation, for example, when the cases where there've been these monastics who self-immolated, and apparently with complete equanimity, just for example, somehow they seem to have reached an unconditional well-being through the power, through the thoroughness of their equanimity. So that's one way that we might see the possibility of an unconditional well-being. Another, I'll just note this now, is whether, I don't know how much you people here are familiar with this kind of concept, but the deep Buddhist insight goes further and sees that there isn't really a self here. There's the third mark of Buddhism, or is it the second? It's anatta, no self. Yeah, it's the second of the three marks, no self. That what if there really isn't the egoic concentration, density that I think of as being me, this sort of, there must be a center of this circle, there must be a center of this sphere of experience. But what if there isn't one? And if that can be really clearly realized, and it blows away the center of conditionality. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I want to get to some of your questions. Any responses to that are welcome. But meanwhile, so that's just sort of a teaser, just to be thinking about the possibility of unconditional well-being, because people claim to have found unconditional well-being. It's not like a rare claim that there is some possibility, where it could be that the distinction between me and everything else has just vanished. So how can there be that would actually erase the possibility of conditionality, really? There's one reality, one great reality that is just a one empty fact, one empty existence, a singularity really, that's constantly being everything. It's constantly doing nothing, being everything, doing everything, all at the same time. So hey, let's get to some questions.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. So I have everyone's wonderful questions here, and I will just have to say that we were really struck by how deep and thoughtful they were, and the kind of the level of practice that clearly is underpinning them. So thank you so much for sharing them. We're going to do our best to get through as many as we can in the time we have left. So I'm just going to get right in. Henry, there was a question from James, which was, know when I'm experiencing non-dual awareness?
Oh, well, if you're not feeling utterly different and weird and like you never have before, then you're probably not. If you are, like, it's as if the bottom's fallen out and you really have lost your bearings and it's absolutely beautiful and you don't know who you are, you're not what you thought, or now you do know who you are. It's like you're something much vaster that seems to be outside time, and from its perspective, what you ordinarily thought of as your life is like a beautiful dream that's been going on, and you can now see it's beautiful, even though when you were in it you probably might have thought it was kind of hellish at times. But from this new perspective you can see it's beautiful. Then you're probably having non-dual experience. It's unmistakable. I mean, you might not know it's non-dual experience, but it's an unmistakable shift. It's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea this was what was really going on all along, and now I've discovered it. And maybe there's sometimes a sense of recognition that of course this was what was going on all along, but I just couldn't see it. The last 25 years of my life, or whatever it's been, I have had kind of no idea that this was reality, but now I know this is what reality is. This has been all along. If it's like that, and of course it may be just a very brief glancing glimpse of that, not really strongly settled in it, then it's non-dual experience. It's like it cannot be underestimated. You know, it's not like, oh, I feel quite calm now. That's fantastic, but it's not the same as non-dual experience. Okay, that's my response, Jack.
Yeah. Great. Next question was from Paro and related to this topic of unconditional well-being, which is that some practitioners have physical or mental conditions that they have to deal with that require, you know, kind of active management. So how do we balance these two things? The sort of the path of practice of trying to let go of those and reach that stage of unconditional well-being, but yet at the same time the sort of practical dimension of needing to, you know, take active management of some of those conditions in our lives.
Yes, I love this question. I love the last one as well, by the way, but this is really, really good. I mean, I'll give you an example. I had a brain injury 4 years ago. I've had to do a lot of management because I had a long tail of post-concussion trouble from that. And I just do it. You know, it's not like unconditional means you don't take care of things. This is actually like almost like the heart of Zen. The beautiful thing about Zen is it puts an emphasis on how you live, and it sort of, you realize that everything's empty. What does that mean? It means that everything is exactly the way it is, but it's really just an appearance. It doesn't have the solidity that it seems to have, or the solidity that it seems to have. That too is just an appearance. You see that it's all kind of a dream, but you still have to live it. You still go through it all, taking care of the things that need to be taken care of. And all of that is like unconditional well-being just functioning. So do you see what I mean? Like it's not like if you've got a cold because you've found unconditional well-being, therefore you behave as if you don't have a cold. That would be going sort of against conditions. Unconditional means you've seen that there aren't really conditions in the first place. So of course you don't need to go against them. You see what I mean? I don't know if I'm making this really clear, but it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful question. Let me put it another way. Ding, 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 ding. If everything's empty, including you, you just let everything unfold. You So of course you take care of things. That's just part of how things unfold. Another way to look at it, which I really like, is this. It also comes from early Zen. Is that practice is a cart track. It has two wheel tracks. One wheel track is reality, which is one and empty and infinite and timeless and spaceless. The other wheel track is the way everything appears to us. And we need to respond to things on that level as well. So you can't drive on the other side of the road because there's no other side. No. You have to stay in the right lane, even though that lane may be completely empty. The great Zen koan that says, how do you walk straight on a road with 99 curves, 99 bends? How do you go straight? That's exactly the point that you're making, whoever's question that was.
Thanks, Henry.
I may have confused everybody, but let's keep going.
The next question was from Jeffrey, and it was about teaching and poetry. And the question is really along the lines of how do you balance trying to clear teaching with abstract poetry? Like, how do you use poetry as a vehicle for teaching? And there was a sort of bonus question here about what your favorite poems were. So maybe, Henry, if you felt like it, we could do a very short poem reading. But that was the question.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. Look, there's different sort of dimensions of our spiritual lives. Now, some people just go all out for reality, and that's all they need. That's all they want, and they might end up living in a monastery of some kind, or they might live a life that is completely guided by and infused in reality, meaning, I guess I'm meaning non-dual reality, full awakened living. And you don't have to have anything to do with the arts, there's no need to. If you want to, that's fine. You are somebody who likes writing poems, that's great. If you're somebody who likes reading poems, that's great. Enjoying poems, that's great. And sometimes there are poems that can be really helpful for our spiritual life. They can precipitate awakening experiences. Zen, again, has a long tradition of using poetry and also using poetic language, but not necessarily exactly in poems, for its teaching. But many traditions do not. They don't go to beautiful evocations of landscape when they want to try to convey what an awakening experience is like. The most traditions are pretty abstract and kind of drab, I think, in a certain way, in the language they use around spiritual experience. They talk about different kinds of consciousness and different details of practice methodologies to find different kinds of consciousness. Zen is really different in that it talks not at all abstract. It talks about concrete things. There's one master who's asked, hey, how do you find that which never dies? And he said, the master answers, look at the beautiful autumn foliage spreading like brocade over the valley. Well, autumn foliage is obviously going to die. It's the sign of the leaves dying, and it's only going to be there in those beautiful colors for a matter of weeks. But that, he says, is the undying body. And he says, so look at the beautiful, autumn foliage spreading like brocade, and the mountain streams are blue as indigo. Mountain streams are blue as indigo. Those streams that never stop going by, they are the undying, unchanging body. It's really paradoxical. He points to two things that are obviously changing all the time. Streams flowing, leaves dying. No, those are the undying body. It's a far more beautiful way of evoking it, I think, than dry abstract language that you get in Advaita and stuff, which, I love Vedic some of the Upanishads. I mean, I love them, but it's a different way of approaching the truths of our spiritual, of our existential situation. Yeah.
Thanks, Henry. The next question was from EZ, which is, I think, a very topical one. How do you maintain hope in humanity when compassion seems to be diminishing in some parts of the world?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd say probably it was ever thus. I suspect. Like, the times when, I mean, there's a great book called After Buddhism by Stephen Batchelor, when actually in that book, I'm sorry, it might not be that one, it might be one called Confession of a Buddhist Atheist. It's one of his fairly recent books. He goes into some detail into the Buddha's life, historical life, and the times he was living in. And there was a lot of uncertainty. There was, the principality that he lived in was being threatened by a larger kingdom, and there was war, and then I often quote the point to this thing in the history of Zen is that the great flourishing of Zen when it started really was in Tang Dynasty China. And Tang Dynasty China had one of the worst wars that humanity's ever known, when 2/3 of the Chinese population died from warfare and famine and disease that followed in the wake of war. And yet, this teaching that's very hopeful and positive, and really is actually all about finding an unconditional well-being, sprang up. I mean, you can see that, well, in conditions that are that hard, maybe that's right when you would get, that's when people most need something that is a more radical approach to well-being than what we normally do. Which, normally what we're doing is having totally conditional well-being, like I've got the house I want, I got the job I want, I got the car I want, I got the partner, the family I want, and all those things are necessarily temporary. They're impermanent, they're fragile, they're uncertain, but we tend to pin our hopes on them. And of course, the path of practice is like, no, that there's something actually more reliable. But it's difficult because it's so open. It's like saying, instead of trying to have ground under your feet that you can rely on, learn that you never really had ground under your feet at all anyway. That's the big lesson, really, I think, of deep meditation traditions, is that there is no ground under our feet. And instead of, we might recoil and fear and shock at hearing that, but actually the path of meditation is preparing us to be okay with that, and to actually live without needing ground under our feet, and living in uncertainty and being open to it, not resisting it. Everybody's still here. Should we do couple more?
Yeah, I know we started a couple minutes late, so I think we have time for two more. I really like this question from developer E, which is, what is the biggest trap on the journey towards original love? And probably that deserves 30 seconds of context on what we mean by original love.
Okay, I use the term original love as a little bit of a riff on the old Buddhist, Zen Buddhist term, the original face, or the original nature. Like, original nature is sort of what I've been talking about. It's like when we discover that there's a level of reality. It's sometimes called emptiness. It's sometimes called oneness as well, where we're not separate from anything and nothing is separate from anything. And it's like a different register. It's a different order of reality that doesn't deny this reality. It's just a clearer view of it, a larger view of it. And to find that original nature is to find unconditional well-being. I mean, we may conditionally dip in and out of it. We may not have it totally clear all the time, but when we do know it, it's unconditional. And so that's what I mean by original love. And the traps on the path to it are numerous. One of them is not knowing the distinction between many other good things that are in the path of practice and it. And that's a big problem today, when a lot of people are hung up on mindfulness. Mindfulness is a foundational practice, and we always need to come back to it. But traditionally, mindfulness is not about that. Mindfulness is about better nervous system regulation. It's about, understanding our reactivity better. It's about developing more patience and very good things. But it's not about non-dual reality. It's not about original nature. So just being clear that there's a distinction there is one good thing. Another thing that we may get trapped by is, we can sort of get deeper. We can just have a sense of, especially we were talking about poetry earlier. Poetry, especially kind of sort of psychologically deep poetry, it opens up a feeling of being more connected. It can very much do that. It can open up a sense of a deeper life, but being clear that that's not the same as non-dual experience. That's a beautiful thing, but it's not the end of the road in terms of awakening, in terms of original love. Likewise, we can get into flow states, and they just seem like, man, I don't need anything else. And absolutely right. That's almost like a definition of a flow state, is you don't need anything else, But actually, they are not awakening. Awakening is a radical insight into the nature of things. It's not just a great state of mind. And so the biggest traps are numerous, and they're all about feeling really good in a certain way, feeling really good along the way toward a greater reality. That until we've glimpsed it, we don't really know what it is. It just sounds abstract to us when we hear about it. But of course, it's not abstract at all when we experience it. It's the most vivid thing you'll ever experience.
Thanks.
So, Jack, what do you think? We've gone over a bit, but we could do one more if anybody if people want that.
We have gone over. I feel like we could keep going for a long time, because there's still more questions, but we do have to sadly wrap up relatively soon.
Yeah.
But I'll pick one last one, and which is so hard because there's so many fantastic questions here. But I guess maybe perhaps a more just a kind of more practical one, pragmatic one, that's also relevant to the way. And that's a question from John, who asks that the way moves fairly quickly through a variety of practice methods. And is developing a consistent method unnecessary, or is it better to have one consistent method and stick with it for practice?
Yeah, I love that question. It's there is no one answer. There's some traditions that are just one practice for all the decades of your life. I mean, there's one Chinese Zen line that all you do is you ask, what is this? That's the only practice. And then in early Buddhism, there's just one Buddhist meditation document that it alone has 65 practices in it, and you move through them. And the more you move through them, the more you're kind of developing and expanding the range of your mindfulness. And that's obviously a really good thing to do as well. There's no answer to. So I think in a long life of practice, it's really good to have done a phase where you cover some really good foundations of practice, which does mean various practices. And actually on the way, we kind of cycle round and round. So we do have, it's true, a number of different practices, but actually you keep coming around and you get deeper and deeper in each of them. I think, I really believe after, my 35 odd years of meditating or longer and 15 years of teaching, that I really feel pretty confident that it's a good foundation. If somebody does our full course, which at the moment is going to be 3 years, but it might end up longer, I think they're going to be really well set for life as a meditator, so yeah, there's different approaches to that, but that's mine.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So let's wrap it up there. And I'm sorry to everyone whose questions we didn't get to. They were really fantastic. And I just want to thank you for the whole Meditation Mind community for letting us into your beautiful space. It's so warm and inviting and supporting and forgiving of a few technical issues. So thank you for that. And I guess I'll just close with a quick comment on if anyone's curious to find more of Henry's teaching. There's a few different things. There's Henry's book that came out last year, Original Love, which picks up on a lot of the themes that we're talking about today. There's the app that we've been talking about as well, The Way, and there's a special offer for Meditation Mind folks, 30 free days to check it out. And then there's also, throughout the year, we do live events, both in person and online. And on the 19th of January, one of Henry's first course of 2025 starts with live teaching from Henry, which I'll just put the link in the chat if anyone wants to check it out.
Thank you so very much. It's cool to see how a Zen master deals with technical issues with grace. It's very, very nice.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks everyone for being on, and Anthony, thanks for hosting us.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, great to be with you.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.